Right, it's still TVC Breakfast. This is TalkTime. The abduction last year shocked the world and put Nigeria on the global map. We're talking about 276 schoolgirls who were kidnapped by members of Boko Haram on April the 14th, 2014. 57 have escaped, but more than 200 are yet to be freed. Tomorrow will mark 600 days of their captivity, and the Bring Back Our Girls BBOG campaigners are planning to mark this. Well, in the studio is a social commentator, Ireti Bakare. Ireti, glad to have you this morning. Join us.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm sure you're good too. It'll be 600 days since the Chibok girls were kidnapped, and BBOG has kept this campaign alive. You know, what lessons can Nigerians and its leaders glean from their persistence and selflessness? That's how I describe it.
I think what they can learn is how to love, citizens, fellow citizens, and another person, because one has to applaud the BBOG campaigners. They have been relentless, and their relentlessness has kept the girls in our consciousness. It's kept them on the global map continuously, and I think that's something that the Nigerian government can learn. They can also learn from the insistence. So there's persistence and there's insistence. The insistence that these girls must be found. The doggedness which the BBOG campaigners have used, and the fact that they have constantly said, look, these women who are the campaigners predominated by women, a lot of them have been to that area to do their own investigation, to talk to villagers, etc., etc. And they keep collecting information. But sadly, there's nowhere to put that information. There's no way to get that information to the government, because there's no one really responsible to saying, right, your task for the next year and your team is to find these girls by any means necessary. And what the BBOG campaigners have said is, we are going to ensure you find these girls by any means necessary because we want them back. So I think there's a lot that the Nigerian government can learn. The other thing the Nigerian government, because when you get information, you've got to have somewhere to funnel it through, haven't you? And you're talking about some sort of communication center. You know, we have all these GSMs, even though they keep talking about Chibok like it's it's not even in Nigeria. Actually, it is.
It is.
There are communication lines in Chibok as well. So why not open a communication center because the locals in Chibok, I think very earlier on, 6 months ago or so, last year, 6 months after it happened, a lot of information was coming out. So the villagers would say, they saw them go that way. They saw them put this way. We heard they were over there. But again, as I said, there was no one to pass that information on to. They actually didn't know who to pass it on to. So it's a case of, if you and I went there and said, we're looking for the Chibok girls, what's going on? They'll tell you. So it seems like it's rumors. But we all know something. There's got to be murmurings, because clearly it's a closed community. It's a
small community.
Quite small, yeah. So, if there had been a communication center set up immediately after it happened, where all the information that was being sent in was actually somebody was going through them, analyzing them and following through to say, okay, right, we follow that trail. There's nothing there. Let's move on to the next one. Or you begin to create a pattern saying, okay, somebody saw them here, somebody saw them there. Okay, clearly they must be around, this sort of perimeter or whatever, rather than saying, okay, they're in Sambisa forest. Sambisa is what, 60,000, 40,000 square meterage of forest? Where do you start to look from? So there's a lot that the Nigerian government can learn from, these campaigners who, I think, frankly, they are our heroes. They are the ones that have lessened, and notice I say lessened, the shame and the stain on this country. But if those girls are not found, our stain is going to remain forever.
Well, I'm going to ask you that now. Hope keeps every one of us alive, but what do you think? Will the Chibok girls ever return?
Well, let's start from the positive. The positive is we know 57 or so of them escaped.
Yeah, they did.
The positive is we know that 3 of them are in the States right now, studying in America and doing very well. 57 came back, and there are still 200 odd out there. Can they be returned? Well, of course they can be returned. 200 people or 200 plus people do not disappear you know, like Malaysia flight, they are on ground. There wasn't a plane crash. They weren't in a bus that disappeared and was suddenly, you know, beamed up to Scotty. They were physically on the ground. They were physically on Nigerian soil. Now, it's quite possible that, you know, they've been broken up into groups, as we've heard. Fair enough. But let's start by even just following the trails. Let's start by being determined, because I think that's what the government is missing. I think they're missing a determination, because what I often say is if you have a determination to achieve something, you will achieve it. Clearly, we have a sort of a new zest in our military. We have a military who is saying, you know what, we're going to get rid of Boko Haram insurgency by December. Well, let's be frank with each other, that's clearly not going to happen. And I'm not being negative, it's just not going to happen. What they may do is win a battle on the ground by December, rather than get rid of the ideology. And the insurgency is the ideology. Okay? So if you're fighting the battle on the ground, one of the things they've said is we've gone out to the Boko Haram hideouts, we've literally, you know, gotten rid of them from all their hideouts. That's why they're now beginning to do all these new bombings that they're doing, etc., etc. Well, if you've gone to their hideouts, they must have ran. They would have left evidence. Who is collecting the evidence to say, right, okay, clearly there must have been women living here with these people. Let's look at that trail. So can they be found? Of course they can be found.
Found positive there.
Most certainly. I believe they can be found. Would we get all of them? That's a different question altogether. But yes, they can be found. If 57 of them made it back, and let's be frank, there are more than the Chibok girls who have gone missing.
Even recently, they're still kidnapped someone.
Exactly. So unless the war with Boko Haram would not be won unless those girls are found.
All right. In July, the BBOG made a presentation to the president, who pledged to act on their concerns. But up till now, things remain as they are. What next?
Yes, look, I think for me, we have a president who cares. We have a president who wants to do the best by the country. We have a president who has a family that's predominated by women. So he knows what it's like to lose a daughter. And let's be frank, he's also from that area. So yes, he will pledge, but he will give instructions. Now, we also have new bosses in the army, new army generals that have come and have been promoted. It's about the strategy. So whatever we were doing before clearly wasn't working. So we need to re-strategize. Whilst re-strategizing to fight the war, we also then need to re-strategize to fight the mind and win over the minds of these people. Some of these women do go by their own will. Not all of them are kidnapped. Some do choose to go with Boko Haram. The question is, why? And so that's why we must always try and fight. It's two battles.
Yeah.
We fight, you know, we re-strategize for the war on the ground, and I'm sure, you know, they're winning some, you know, but we also must fight the war of the mind.
The ideology thing.
Absolutely.
People have said, in fact, it's not just winning the war. The main war is the ideology.
Absolutely. That's the hardest one. Yeah.
All right. I still have with me Ireti Bakr in the studio. A member of the Bring Back Our Girls group, Boki Ishoni Bare, joins us from Abuja. Boki, glad to have you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, Boki, I'm still speaking with Ireti. What I told him, talked to her about was the dog. She added doggedness, but I was talking about the persistence, the selflessness. What currently, it will soon be 600 days, is the BBOG doing, you know, in their own way, to not just commemorate this day, put it in our faces, but to bring back the girls, like the hashtag says.
Thank you very much for having me here. I think one sad reality is the fact that we even have to talk about 600 days of the abduction of the girls. I recall when it was 30 days, how difficult it was for us. And then we started commemorating every milestone days, 100 days, 200, 300, and now we are talking about 100 of those days in 6 times. It is a very sad reality. we've done everything that we could possibly do as citizens who are agitating for these girls. We've mapped out stakeholders, we've engaged stakeholders, we've met the president, we've done everything that is possible within our powers. However, we are still yet to receive results. The best we can still do again on the 600th day of the abduction of the girls is to commemorate the day. But beyond just commemoration is to ensure that this situation is brought back on the front burner. If you look at the tempo of the discussions around the Chibok girls, you will see how it has so nosedived that it is quite disappointing. We as Nigerians, we failed those girls. I was in Chibok in September. The week of September the 17th, I was in Chibok, and I met a lot of the parents, I met the community dwellers, I met the vice president, the vice principal of the school. Hearing their story on their own land brings to reality the pains that, you know, is difficult for some people to connect with. I met with one of the fathers, and the father said to me that we don't want anything, that all we want is our Chibok girls back. You know, so with every idea that you can think of, we've exhausted it, we've thought, we've implemented, we've dared things, we've gone out of the street, we've sat across the table, we've tweeted, we've gone on Facebook, we've done everything you could possibly think of. Unfortunately, we are yet to achieve results. I'm hoping that what I saw in Chibok would not continue, because that is a case of a community that is marginalized.